Dope though.
Joe, we're gonna have live on our live show. We're gonna have the cameras. We're gonna allow cameras, phones.
Probably not.
What live show?
Probably not.
We're doing a live show.
Are y'all?
Yeah, you in it too.
After April.
Going on tour, Joe?
I don't know when your contract is up. It's probably gonna be a summer run.
Are y'all really doing a live show?
Yes, but we ain't telling you because we want to talk there.
Oh shit!
I'm joking.
Mona be the one to bring them out.
We still working on some details.
Mona gonna bring out the big hoes.
Why the fuck is Mark talking like he a part of the band?
Now, let's talk about something that's been building quietly behind the scenes. The dynamic inside the Joe Budden Podcast and the way the co-hosts interact with each other both on and off the mic. Because at this point, you kind of have to ask yourself a question. Is all of this just part of the show? The constant clowning, the little jabs, the moments where somebody gets called out for being out of the loop or not being invited to something, is that just part of the running joke? Because if you've been watching the podcast for a while, you know that's something they do all the time. They poke at each other, they exaggerate things, and the audience ends up trying to figure out what's real and what's just entertainment. But at the same time, there's another layer to all of this. Joe Budden has been talking for years about wanting to take the Joe Budden Podcast on the road, a real tour, live shows, actual audiences sitting in front of them while they record. And that's not a new idea. He already did it before, back when the podcast lineup included Rory and Mal. They traveled, they sold tickets, and they proved that the podcast could exist as a live experience. But here's the interesting part. Since that era ended and the current version of the cast came together, they've never actually done it again. Not once. And now suddenly, Marc is the one pushing the conversation about doing a live show. That's where things start getting interesting, because the moment that topic came up again, the energy around the room started to shift. You could almost feel people paying closer attention to how the logistics would work. And I remember reading a comment on one of my earlier videos where someone said, "Man, you're just advocating for Marc now." But it's not about advocating for anyone, it's about pointing out what's happening. The moment Marc starts pushing the idea of a live show, suddenly the conversation becomes serious again. It's like somebody flipped a switch. All right, let's see if we can actually make this happen. Let's test it. Let's see if the audience would show up. And if you've been paying attention, it almost feels like déjà vu. Because the last time this conversation happened, when Marc was trying to organize things behind the scenes, Flip immediately started asking questions about the money. Not small questions either, big questions. How much is everybody getting paid? Are they getting paid per show? Is there a per diem? Who's covering the hotels? Who's covering the travel? And those questions weren't random. They were the same kinds of questions Mona was asking too. And that raises an obvious point. Why would people ask those questions unless they believed there was something real happening behind the scenes? You don't start asking about contracts and travel arrangements if the tour is just a joke. Something was clearly being discussed. But here's where things get complicated. Recently, we've seen Mona taking a more active role in how things operate behind the scenes. She's been telling people how to move, how to handle comments, and how to deal with the internet. For example, when B. Dot started appearing more often, she was telling him things like, "Yeah, they do this to me all the time. You're gonna have to get used to it." Or when Sasha was dealing with criticism in the comments section on the Patreon, Mona basically told her not to worry about it. She said the comment section is always going to be crazy. People are always going to complain. The important thing is to just keep doing the job. So Mona had no problem giving advice and guiding people when she felt like she had the authority to do it. But then, the moment that same type of authority gets questioned, suddenly it becomes a problem. Suddenly it's like, wait, why do you think you have that much power? And that's the same dynamic we see with Flip sometimes, which is why this whole situation feels like an ongoing theme within the podcast. Everybody knows how to push each other's buttons. The difference is they're used to it being Joe that's doing it. Joe is the ringleader. Joe was the one who starts the chaos. Joe was the one who says the uncomfortable thing out loud. So when Joe does it, everyone just kind of accepts it. But when someone else starts doing the same thing, now it feels different. Now people start reacting. And that's why Marc's role inside the show is becoming so interesting. Because if you think about it, Marc is slowly stepping into a role that used to belong to Parks. Back in the earlier days, Parks was the one handling a lot of the production responsibilities. He was keeping track of timestamps, editing notes, and making sure things were structured correctly. That was his lane. But now, Marc is stepping into similar territory. He's the one acknowledging the possibility of live shows. He's the one helping organize things behind the scenes. And that shift is noticeable. But drama aside, I'm actually excited about the possibility of a live show. I really am. And if it happens, I need the people in New York to show up. Seriously. Because if they do the first live show in New York and the turnout is strong, that's what's going to give them the confidence to take the show to other places. Not just different cities, different states. I'm already putting my request in early. Come to Texas. Y'all shout out Houston and Dallas all the time on the podcast, but it's time to start shouting out San Antonio too. There's money down here. There's fans down here. People would absolutely come to those shows. But that raises another question that a lot of people are wondering. What would a live show with this current cast actually look like? Because the dynamic is very different compared to the Rory and Mal era. You've got Marc, who tends to bring the more mature, analytical, sometimes political perspective. You've got Ice, Parks, and Bay contributing heavily on the music side of the conversation. You've got Ish, who usually speaks from the lifestyle and real-life experience. And then you've got Flip and Mona, who often provide the comedic energy in chaotic moments. That's a lot of different personalities. So how does all of that translate into a live environment? Because once you add an audience into the room, everything changes. Now you've got people reacting in real time. Now you've got fans asking questions. Now you've got moments where the crowd might challenge something someone says. Are they going to take questions from the audience? Are they going to answer those questions honestly? Or are they going to dodge them? Because let's be honest, there's a lot that could go wrong during a live podcast. And Joe Budden is smart enough to know that. That's probably one of the reasons the tour hasn't happened with this lineup. But if Marc is really pushing for it, and if the conversations behind the scenes are serious, then it might actually happen. And if it does, the dynamic of the entire podcast could change. And honestly, the fact that people are still hating on her, that's a good thing. Because the worst thing you could ever have happen is complete silence. Nobody reacting, nobody engaging. Remember when Jeremy Heck came on? Crickets. No one said a word. We never saw him again. Joe tried to make something happen, but the audience didn't respond. No engagement? Gone. So B-Dot, take this as a win. People hating? That means you're making an impact, especially if you start showing a side of yourself we've never seen before. This isn't just an interview. This is a lifestyle show. Once you realize that the audience is connecting to you, not just what you say, that's when things change. Once you start opening up, it could literally change your life. Now, I want to hear from y'all. Drop it in the comments. Did you like this episode? Do you really think they're going to pull off a live show? If so, how do you see it going down? And hey, if you liked the video, smash that like button. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit subscribe and join the movement. If you already are, you already know how we rock. Keep this thing moving forward.